Hey everybody, my name
Right.
is Nora Lenz and I'm here with Robert Rust. And we made a video, several months back, probably about a year ago, maybe, or even longer than a year. I'm not sure about that now, but about the proper human diet. And we promised in that video a follow-up video on the ideas around transitioning to raw food diet, and we haven't actually done that video, so we're doing it now. We're just going to have a casual conversation about transitioning. Um, I've been all raw for 21 years, and Robert's been all raw since, it's probably 35 years or something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
1987.
about that. Yeah, 35 or so. Yeah.
And I met Robert in just shortly after I went raw and didn't know anything about natural hygiene at the time. And Robert was very experienced in not only being raw, but natural hygiene and the principles of digestion and proper human diets and all of that. And he started schooling me, and I learned a lot, of course, from my experience too. But so today we just want to talk about transitioning and give everybody some tips. Everybody wants to know how to go about that. And it's all kinds of different opinions. So anyway, Robert, do you want to start off? Do you want to just, introduce yourself, or do you have some um, pearls of wisdom to impart right off the top?
Well, I'm Robert Rust and been hygienic for a long time, 35 years. Now, the transition process is fairly complicated, or it can be. So it depends a lot on what the person feels they can do, or is interested in doing, or is able to do. You have to consider the food available and the emotional state and mental state of the person and the surroundings. So that's what complicates it.
Right.
Um, it all requires a lot of effort or concentration or dedication, and eventually if a person sticks to it, they'll be successful. They can be as successful as they want, whether they want to be all raw or half raw or whatever.
Right. Well, let's talk first of all about what the factors are that should go into somebody determining how long they want to take to transition, because I've heard from lots of practitioners that say, if you're dealing with some really debilitating problem, some like if you're bedridden or something, you don't really have the luxury of making a slow transition like somebody who's in their mid 30s and healthy or whatever. And that maybe you should go really fast, absolutely ideally, or as much as you can for 30 or 60 days or whatever, and then go back and make your slower transition when you're out of bed, when you're able to be functional.
Right, yeah, yeah. There's two basic ways. A person can go cold turkey, go raw, try and stick it out, or they can do it slower, and the rate at that can be quick or fast, can be anything. It depends on person's choice or their situation.
People
I
should sorry, people should bear in mind that when you do go cold turkey, like a lot of people discover this information and then they just want to put it into place in their life right away. And they don't realize that they're going to feel some withdrawal. They're going to feel some symptoms.
Yeah,
And so that's a huge factor. So go ahead and say what you're going to say. Sorry.
yeah. So whatever is done, the person's going to be doing a lot of learning, finding things out about themselves, how they react to food, their feelings. So it'll be a lot of learning and experience, and there'll always be mistakes made because it's all new. And at first, when we change our diet, our body will be adjusting. And so how it behaves in the beginning when we adjust is not the same how it'll be, say, a half a year later or a year later. The body will be cleaning itself out, becoming more efficient in digestion. You'll be increasing nutrient absorption, which will then eliminate or remove symptoms or prevent symptoms, so many symptoms. At first, there'll be a lot of symptoms. These are withdrawal symptoms. Person can feel rotten periodically. Some foods will be difficult to get over. Some will be very easy. So these are things that the person will find out as they go, as they try it.
Mhm.
So myself, I would recommend a person first eat raw food for a while, or improved raw food, especially raw fruit, and they will find out how they react then, and they'll also lighten the load that their body has from the previous diet of cooked foods, which will then, when they go more strictly, like pure raw foods or pure fruit, they won't feel so many symptoms, so many withdrawal symptoms, and it'll make it easier for them to continue without indulging here or there and
Right.
hurting themselves.
A lot of people are just doing like a raw till 4 p.m. kind of thing where they have fruit for breakfast and then they have their normal whatever they would normally eat for lunch and dinner if they do 3 meals or whatever. And what do you think about that, about doing it that way? It's an option, right?
Yeah, definitely can do that. A real simple thing to do, it's really good, is just to make the morning meal breakfast light, make it a fruit breakfast. And then the
Right.
person can eat regular the rest of the day just to see what that does. It's
Right.
might be very easy, and then they could do that for breakfast and lunch, say.
Right.
Without, it's a good idea just to try starting and see how it feels. You don't have to commit to anything. You just try out eating more raw food and put that in the
Right.
diet. More salads at dinner, fruit during the day, or a salad at lunch. Just more raw stuff, particularly ripe fruit. When according to how much you want to eat, you don't have to try and stuff yourself or anything like that. Just do that, and you'll get a feel for it. That's really
Right.
important. It's really important to get a feel for the food, how you feel and how you react.
Yeah, it's really important to keep yourself satisfied and pay attention to how, tempted you are to eat bad foods because that's a signal to you that you're going too fast. And I think a lot of people just try to white knuckle through that, and then it just makes them crash harder when they do eventually crash. So, you could do all fruit for breakfast for like a month, and then when you're ready, without pushing yourself too much, you could do fruit for lunch too. But do that once a week or do it once a month just to see how it feels, like you said.
Yeah. And then that dinner, they can have their regular food they might have. Overall, a person can do is just simplify their food overall at first, like not combine so many foods together. You could,
Right, right.
the
Just
breakfast is
simplify.
really good. Yeah, in the breakfast you could just eat one type of food, say, not mix meats and grains or starches together. Just
Right,
you could have your cereal, say, and no nothing else. And or you'd skip the cereal, have some fruit first, like a melon or oranges, and then half an hour later you could have regular breakfast, but a simple one. Don't just start skipping coffee or meat, sausages, eggs, that type of thing. Just eat very lightly or lighter.
right.
Same
So
with lunch, do that, or and dinner.
speaking of which, when people do transition that way by keeping some cooked foods in their diets, a lot of people have the question, which cooked foods are better? I mean, they're not all the same in, digestive, what it takes to digest them. So like, what if somebody wanted to choose between whether they should keep meat in their diet or, I mean, they feel like they have to eat something that's satisfying, right? And they can either be satisfied by meat or they can be satisfied by a starchy meal like potatoes or pasta or whatever. What do you think is better to keep in their diets initially?
Yeah, well, that'll depend. Meat's fairly easy to reduce.
It's
Cut that in
easy
half.
to reduce. It's
Yeah,
easy
it's
to
easy
reduce
to
like in
reduce
quantity.
and
And
quantity.
and still feel
And for
satisfied.
yeah, yeah. Starches are more difficult because we eat more of them, larger volume, and they do provide energy, and we're used to getting our energy from that. So the grains can be very addictive.
Yeah,
Yeah, very like bread and pasta, rice.
right. I think it's really important to talk about this objectively because what most people hear who are entertaining thoughts of going raw or whatever is they hear just go vegan, just go vegan. That's all that matters. Go vegan and then, progress from there. But I don't think that's necessarily the best way. I did it that way. And I was vegan for a very long time. I got myself into a rut. And then I had a lot of detoxifying to do because you can be vegan and you can be very unhealthy.
Yeah, yeah. It's we don't want to do formulas. You want to work with the person, what works with
Right.
them. Some people are big meat eaters and they don't want to give that up. Their body's adjusted to that, and they still would need that a bit because the body protects itself from the excess, the meat. And then when you eat fruit, which is and vegetables, which are very low in protein, you might not be getting what you actually need. So you might not want to cut back the meat right away, 100%. Yeah. The grains can be cut back and replaced with some fruits like bananas or rich fruits that are sweeter, and that will satisfy the desire for sugars and very light starches. Yeah. What else could be said there?
Um, what do you think about replacing starches? And this is what I did, and I'm not sure if it was the right thing to do or not, but replacing starches with fats. I think a lot of people do that actually because fats are, they sort of replicate starches in the diet because they're so hard to digest that they keep your body busy digesting food and you can't feel your withdrawal when that's happening.
Yeah, the fats are more filling, so that'll reduce the feelings that come about. The craving feelings being symptoms of addiction or stressing out the body too much.
Mm-hmm.
A person can eat the fats, and that would be at lunch. You might have a salad with avocado in it, or maybe even olives or
Maybe,
nuts.
maybe even what?
Olives,
Oh,
olives.
olives, yeah.
Now, I don't like olives themselves because they have salt in them, but you can always soak them and get as much salt out of them. And then, a few salt olives with salt aren't going to kill you as long as they're not too salty. But better would be the avocados. You could have a salad with some oil on it, olive oil or whatever nice oil, nut oils. And then for dinner, you can all have similar. You could have more fats. You could have nuts in your dinner meal instead of, say, meats. You could have a salad and vegetables and then nuts. You don't want to eat the nuts with starches or with meats.
Or fruit.
Nuts as the protein, the concentrated protein. Those are more filling.
Right.
You can also, if you're not particularly hungry or something, you can just have say a quarter cup of nuts or half a cup of nuts even for dinner, and that's it.
Right.
Right. Just get your
I did that. I would, when I was transitioning, I would carry nuts everywhere with me. And when I got those feelings that I didn't like, I
yeah.
would just eat a few nuts and I was good with that. But I ate excessive quantities of nuts and I think it
Well, then what you do,
held me
yeah,
back.
they're addictive because they're so flavorful, but you eat it with, say, celery or lettuce. Perhaps tomatoes, they're not the best because there's so much water in them. Or cucumber, say, or something like that. But yeah, celery is pretty good. And that'll give you the bulk. Fill
Yeah.
up that. And
Yeah.
the celery is not as appealing as the nuts.
Right.
It will cause you to eat less. Your appetite hasn't been stimulated so much.
Well, I think people coming in to raw eating from standard American diet or anything close to that are going to be able to get away with things that we wouldn't even dream of eating now. Like I used to put an olive or not an olive, an almond in a date, pit the date or whatever. and then stick the almond in there. And that, I would take a bag of those with me and just snack on. And that's, to me now kind of appalling, but that's not going to be a problem for somebody who's coming from the, standard American diet. They're going to be fine with that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a good thing to do at first in transition. That replaces uh, protein and starch mixture, which would be much, much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Com combining is
Another thing you could do as a tasty food to have is the date with a bit of cream cheese, say. And so you don't get so much sugar absorption, and the fat will help slow that down. That's a snack or a little treat that people like. Cream,
dates and cream cheese.
yeah, a little bit of
Dairy.
cream cheese, dates, yeah, dairy. So
Really?
if the,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
it's just a transition thing.
Well, yeah,
For a
all
treat
kinds of
in the evening or during the day, the
right.
cream cheese isn't that hard to digest compared to wheat or
Compared to nuts?
yeah, it's easier probably than nuts. Yeah,
Really? Wow,
yeah.
interesting.
Nuts are a heavy concentrated protein, so you got to chew them really well.
Yeah, I definitely think that eating so many nuts early in my transition got me in trouble because I think, I had 3 or 4 pretty heavy cleansing crises, healing crises in the first 3 or 4 years. And I think, 1 or 2 of those was probably because of nuts. I don't
Yeah,
think it was necessarily old stuff.
yeah, nuts. When I started going raw, I ate nuts, and then I ate too much. I ate a lot because they're very tasty, especially cashews.
Yeah,
I
cashew.
eat, I eat so much, I get a gut ache. It's terrible.
I know.
I became sensitive to any impurities in the nuts, any rottenness, rancidness. And I never had that before. I could eat everything, tons of it.
Right.
But as I ate well, I cleansed out. I absorbed way more of the food I was eating, like 4 times as much. And so I absorbed all the rotten parts of the nuts as well, if there were any, if they were slightly rancid, old. And I
Right.
would absorb that, and then I'd have a super bad reaction to it. My face would turn red, and I'd feel like I was going to explode or something like that. A couple
Which
of
would
times.
never have happened before.
No, it never happened in my life before that.
Yeah.
So I
And
had to
you
be
ate
very
much
careful.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
and that's
that
one of the I very carefully.
that brings us to the topic of tolerance versus sensitivity. And I think that's a really important um, idea to discuss with people because they seem to think there's the idea out there in the general populace that it's strength to be able to eat a pile of miscombined garbage junk food or to be able to slam a few jiggers of alcohol and still be able to walk around or drive home or whatever. People see that as being strong, and it's really not being strong, it's being weak because you've given up your vitality in exchange for all this tolerance, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just means, yeah, you're closer to being dead.
Closer to being dead, exactly. Right,
Yeah, when you're dead, you can eat as much of anything that you want. There won't be any reaction.
right,
So yeah, when you're eating cooked foods, processed foods, and so forth, your body protects it from it, thickens its linings everywhere in the stomach, blood cells, the blood vessels, and to prevent it from absorbing so much concentrated food.
and
And
that starts very early in life, right?
yeah,
As
it
soon as
starts.
you start eating junk that
Yeah,
your parents give you when you're 2 years old or whatever, your body starts protecting itself. At first,
yeah,
it
immediately.
revolts.
Yeah.
Right,
So you have these calluses basically throughout your whole body
right,
inside, and that takes a while to remove. It won't happen in a week or a month. It's going to take maybe a year. In some cases, it might be even longer, depending where it is in the body. That's one of the things we have to respect, consider when we go raw, not to try to be perfect right away, because our body takes time to ingest inside, and it might get not enough of various nutrients because it's not absorbing what it needs to from the dilute foods that are being eaten, the raw foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
one thing that was kind of surprising to me, that to learn that, you know, those cooked foods that you were eating before are so much more concentrated. That's what your body is sort of set up for. It's accommodated to. And then when you start eating fruit, it's very dilute. It's 80 or 90 or even more percent water. And if your body is used to getting really dense concentrated foods, it's not, you know, you're going to feel weak. And weakness is normal. It's completely normal, but it can sort of be managed.
yeah, you just have to endure it, be patient until your efficiency of absorption gets better, and then your energy will start returning. When I went raw, I pretty well went cold turkey. And I right away discovered, to my surprise, that I wasn't getting any energy out of eating the fruit that I was eating. I was eating a lot of it. Like for breakfast, I might have like 5 bananas or something. And then I'd go to work and I had no energy to start working. I was like, wow, I don't feel very strong. And I eat some more, and that would help for 5 or 10 minutes, but then I'd run out of energy. I wasn't absorbing. And so that persisted for a few months and it slowly improved, but I had to adjust for that. All right. I used to be able to expend tons of energy all the time, and all of a sudden here I had no energy, and that was difficult or sort of odd to get used to. Then eventually after 6 months, everything was pretty well back to normal. Like I adjusted mostly. I
Right.
still had a lot of adjustment to go, but I didn't
And
wasn't.
but you went raw really young. You were like 23, right?
Yeah, I was 25, I guess, something like that.
25.
Yeah.
For me, that weakness and lack of energy persisted for much longer. It was years before I felt consistently energetic. Um, but I went raw when I was 44. So that extra
Yeah.
20 years of toxicity meant a longer, you know, period of healing for me.
Yeah. What helped me also in the beginning, I did do some fast. I did a 6-day fast or so, and a 3-day, and a couple 1 day maybe or 2 days. In that first 6 months or first 9 months, and that helped. Well, I lost weight and my body got rid of excess tissues like callous, thick skins or something like that in my testicles and so forth that were preventing me from absorbing. And so that helped me then gain my absorption back from the raw foods, or get it, and then therefore have more energy.
How old were you, or how long had you been raw when you did your really long fast?
I was 28 or 9 or something like that. Yeah, 28.
So you'd been raw 3 or 4 years, and you
Yeah,
fasted for how long?
I went about 53 days.
53 days. Just tell us about that. So what were the circumstances there? What motivated you to do that?
Well, I had read a lot about fasting. I didn't do it in the first 3 years. I was just reading about it, and of course, reading hygiene and trying to improve my diet where I could. So I wanted to just kind of experiment, see how my body reacted. I knew I'd lose a lot of weight, and it would help basically set me to a pure state or closer to it. And I was trying to get over my eating habits, my overeating habits. And so I was hoping the fast would help me just get away from food, thinking about it and wanting it, and just reduce my desire to overeat all the time. That was my biggest problem in my whole life, just overeating, just massive amounts of food. And so by not eating, that would give me a long pause from food eating. So that's what
Reset.
a reset. Yeah. So I was wanting to do that, and it took committal to do that fast. And then I'd learn about the fast and see what happens. And I didn't know how long I'd do that first. First time, okay, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But as it went on, I could see, okay, I'll go longer. Right? I'm feeling great. And so I just went longer.
And
And then,
what were the circumstances you were in? You didn't have a practitioner like taking your blood pressure every day and any of that kind of stuff, right?
Oh no, I just at in a cabin but on the lake below my parents' house. I was at their place. I did that,
So you
and
stayed all by yourself in a little cabin on a lake for
yeah,
53 days and drank only water.
yeah, it was a beautiful environment. Summertime, had the lake there. I could swim, do walks, whatever. Beautiful finished cabin, and surrounded by forest and so forth. So it was like being on vacation. Like it was quiet, and I could do anything I wanted. So that's what I did.
And did you feel good? Did you feel weak during the fast?
No, I felt great at first few days. You get these slight withdrawal symptoms where you have to sort of endure it. You want to eat, you have that feeling. So you have to go through that. And once you do, after a few days, then your appetite goes away. Mine did. And it becomes much easier. And you just then continue. There'll be a couple of times, there was a couple of times in there I felt like eating. But I then, okay, I'll just not eat. And then the next day was all right. And then towards the end, though, I could have quit, say, in the high 40s quite easily. I just wanted to see if I drag it out a little further, what happens to that feeling that I would like to eat. And what happened, it just persisted. Just I wanted to eat. And I just knew I wanted to eat. So I ate. It was very pronounced. It wasn't sort of desperate. It wasn't desperate. It was just, I just knew I needed to eat.
Deliberate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was peaceful. I didn't have to gobble anything down, just had something to eat, which was just oranges or something like that. Yeah.
Well,
And then, of course, you learn a lot. I did clean out a lot. My hearing got very sensitive, my eyesight improved, and I lost a lot of weight, of course, and body odor, and so on and so forth. I felt really good. I mean, I felt really bright, sharp, positive, loving. Yeah, it was nice. I was glad that I didn't have to do it again because I like eating, right? It's in hindsight, looking back on it when I was finished, it was quite a while, a month and a half or something like that. I did a lot of reading. I did lots of reading, probably too much, not giving my brain enough of a rest, but I read lots of books on hygiene, lots of studying.
well, I've done two fasts in my life, and I had really different experiences with each of them. The first one was a 7-day fast when I was 19, and I didn't know anything about fasting at all. But I just decided I was going to stop eating, and I changed nothing about my life. I didn't rest. I drank only water. I went to work every day. I played tennis. I played in a tennis tournament, in fact. I felt normal. I felt energetic. I had no desire to eat after the second day. Absolutely forgot about food. And then I did my second fast when I was 56. No, I would have been 59 when I was 59. And that was an 18-day fast at Tanglewood in Costa Rica. And it was a completely different experience because I was weak the entire time. I never lost my desire to eat. Um, I was just pretty much miserable the whole time. I absolutely hated it. It was, a beautiful place and everything. And it was kind of interesting because when I came off the fast, I did not want fruit. I didn't want fruit at all. I wanted anything but fruit. And of course, practitioner wants everybody to eat fruit because that's where the calories are, right? So I had to eat fruit, but I suffered a little bit when I overate fruit. And they do restrict your refeeding very tightly. I mean, I
Yeah.
was only allowed to have like 1 glass of coconut water for a whole day, but that was too much for me. Even that was too much for me. And I
Yeah. So you
felt
weren't
awful.
ready yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you have
So,
liked to eat? Anything or just nothing?
I think back on that, and I think probably what really would have been tasty and what my body seemed to want is something like romaine juice or celery juice or something like
Yeah.
that. I would have loved that. I mean, I would have sat down to a meal of lettuce,
Yeah.
which is weird. I don't normally sit down to a meal of lettuce. I don't really eat
Yeah.
lettuce on its own.
Yeah, that's what I
But
would have done if I was you. But yeah,
you don't have access to the kitchen.
no, exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just whenever I've had a fast, I've had other fasts and but much shorter ones. I just love eating fruit.
Yeah,
Not lots of it because it's a little tiring. You don't have much energy to digest. So
right.
yeah, just very liquid and any fruit.
Well, one thing that people don't talk, at least, I haven't kept up with what's actually being said, what's coming from raw coaches or whatever out there nowadays. But back when I was transitioning and first started talking to people about transitioning, there wasn't, there weren't people talking about the problem of increased efficiency. And I had to, if I hadn't known you, if you hadn't clued me in on all of that, I would have had to figure that out on my own. And I don't know if I would have actually, because if you get to the point where your body it just doesn't need very much food and you keep eating according to the calorie chart, or if you keep eating according to your cravings or what time it is, or that somebody else is eating or whatever, you're going to have symptoms. And I think most people attribute those kind of symptoms to deficiency when what they're really looking at is excess. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Like you must have gotten really efficient after your fast.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and so I couldn't eat as much as I used to. And if I did overeat sometimes, like say too much watermelon or too many bananas, something that, and then I just I have to go to the bathroom a lot, and
Mhm.
both, you know. And I felt the feeling of wanting more and more is getting out of control again, which I then knew was overeating because I'd done
Right.
that like all the time. I didn't like that I was doing that. And so I was sensitive to that. I said, this isn't good. And I feel like I got too much sugar in me. It makes your
And
head spin a bit.
and also that physical like heaviness, like you just don't feel light anymore. You
Yeah,
feel
you
like
lose that.
you don't have
Yeah.
as much energy. And you just, if you realize this and you experiment with it, you find out that the less you eat, the more energy you have, which is,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
crazy to
Yeah.
most people.
Yeah. So it's a difficult process to go through. You can't just be perfectly behaving right away. You'll start to learn yourself and how to control that better just from experience.
Right.
I would work. I would do some work or read or something just to spend time away from food or off of my thinking about it to get through those withdrawal feelings. It's
Right.
similar to when you have a pang in your stomach, you just wait a few minutes or 5 minutes or half an hour and it's gone. And then
Right.
you can eat,
Right.
right? And your body's sending out actual true signals of hunger or thirst or something like that.
And
So
the
that
body,
water.
the body directs that process. I know sometimes when people hear about this principle of increased efficiency, they think that it's happening in their heads, and it doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your body. And you have
Yeah.
to, you know, because it's really important at first when you first transition to stay satisfied, like I said before. So you might have to eat and eat and eat and eat. As long as you're eating the right foods, you're still going to be making progress with your healing. But it's just later on, and I found even like after 5 or 6 years, I still didn't have the efficiency problems that I would encounter later on, especially after my fast. Um, so
Yeah, if a person's eating all the time in order to assuage craving feelings, they're creating another problem. And that's an over absorption problem. So the body's going to protect itself from that excess of the fruit or whatever is being eaten. And whatever ingredients are in the food, nutrients, you're getting too much. And so that's creating another problem that you're going to have to face one day. A person will have to face. And so I did little fasts here and there all the time, 1 day, 2 day, or something like that, every few months maybe, to try and overcome that in myself, my tendency to eat. I wanted to get very efficient so that when I did eat, I would eat as much as I need and then no more. And I also then, of course, simplified eating so that I wouldn't stimulate my appetite so much with so many different foods, all these flavors. So I just would eat, say, apples or oranges or lettuce or tomatoes, one of those for a meal. I did that more and more. And that really, really helped to simplify my eating and my feelings and the cravings. Eliminated that without stirring the appetite.
I think a lot of people have to miscombine foods, like we mentioned before, they have to do like the complicated recipes and stuff at first.
Yeah, at first that's a great thing to do. Yeah. It's very inspiring. It's a happy time. It's exciting. And then as you get more experience, you mature a bit, and then you see and you know that you can simplify things, and ultimately you want that because that's how the body works. One type of food at a meal and then so much. And so that's your direction. But at first we're not at that. We're used to eating everything in sight and getting a thrill on food. So if you give that up right away, you're going to bring out a lot of cleansing symptoms and feelings, and you can overreact and end up hurting yourself more than helping yourself by doing that. Yeah? So you can then eat some of these foods, these miscombinations, like rich salads or fruit bowls or some combo, mambo, whatever it's called.
Yeah. I think the idea of eating only one food at a time just seems crazy to people. Probably 99% of the population, if you polled them out there, they would say, why would you want to do that? Just eat one food at a time. But that's what your body wants. That's always what your body wants.
Yeah, each food is very complicated in itself in its chemistry, and the body has evolved for that, sets all its juices up for that. And when it has to digest different foods at the same time, that complicates our digestion. And then we don't get the right absorption that we need, and then we're still hungry and want more, and then we're getting too much.
Right.
So when you eat one thing at a time, you're harmonizing with how nature works, the complex chemistry of the food and your own chemistry. And so your body can efficiently and quickly digest it, absorb it, and then you're ready for something else. While eating one thing at a time, you'll appreciate the taste of it. You'll have that sort of float through your body, and you'll feel that, and you'll like that. Each individual food has its own flavor, its taste, and you get to appreciate that. Whereas if you combine all things together, all you're getting is stimulation. You can't taste one thing or the other. It's just all confusing. And so mentally it's confusing. That means for your body it's confusing. And that leads then to symptoms, problems. All right. So you want to, as you improve your diet, you want to simplify it. And ultimately, you'll be like me or us. When I have a meal, I have one piece of fruit. I have say half a melon or just some bananas or just apples, whatever. Or the salad would be very, very simple, or the juice would be just made of one or two items. Yeah. Then you remain feeling good all the time. There's no craving feelings that come up, no symptoms.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You just eat what you want, and there's no thought about it. You just eat, and it's natural. You don't even think how much you ate. You just ate.
I was just reading a book yesterday that said there's no research that confirms the idea that humans can't eat meat and starches and vegetables and fruit all, or whatever, all in the same meal without digestive confusion or complication or consequences like vomiting or diarrhea. But that's what you can get away with, right? Because you started when you were 2 years old, and your body has very gradually built up its protection against these things, and has, in the meantime, in the process, lost its vitality, or a lot of its vitality. So it's not what you can get away with. It's, you want to make your body more sensitive. It comes with the territory. It comes with strength.
Yeah. You you don't want to overburden the body with too much confusion, too much combinations. You want to keep it simple. That's all it needs. And if you give it more than it needs, then you're harming it. It clears your mind, it removes your symptoms, those craving feelings and so forth, so that after you've done this for a while, you don't even want anything different. You just love one simple food so much at a time, that's all you want.
Right.
And to think of doing something more just feels uncomfortable when you think about it, and you don't want it. It's a
Right.
freedom.
Right. Okay, so let's spend the last few minutes talking about transitioning like we said we would. Let's talk about what a fast transition would look like and what a slow transition would look like, and sort of the pitfalls and what people want to, do and watch out for and all of that. So what do you think?
Yeah, okay. Well, if you're doing a fast transition right away, you're gonna go cold turkey. You want to still get a good amount of calories in you, so you're gonna eat more than you normally would later on. So you want to eat more concentrated foods and bigger meals. Your body won't be getting as much nutrients out of it because it's protected itself. So you can drink more concentrated, say, juices. You could have green juices. Green juices are always really good at any time in the beginning because they have a lot of minerals in them, and they're easy to drink. They reduce the alkalinity of the body, or I mean the acidity of the body, and you just feel better. You don't feel so on edge. You get a lot of moisture into you, water. So green juices are a great thing. That'd be lettuces, cucumbers, maybe some apple in there, or bell peppers, celery,
Hey,
mixtures of that.
I have a question about that. I heard early in my transition that when you're a cooked food eater just going into raw food eating, and a lot of people who are advocates of juicing will say this, that since juicing, um, it reduces the food to tiny little particles, and the particles are already broken down for you. They sort of find their way through that permeable membrane that is not so permeable because you've been eating cooked food for so long that they're easier to digest. I don't find now that juices are easier to digest. I think they're harder for me to digest. I don't know what that's about, but to me, it kind of seems like the water in the juice gets digested right away, and what's left is kind of this particulate matter, and your body's kind of struggling with what to do with it. I don't know. That's my experience with juice. But do you think there's anything to that?
Yeah, juices are always more difficult to digest than the actual food that they come from. I don't like juicing oranges, or I mean fruit, for that very reason. The fruit or vegetable in its whole form as you eat it remains in that form as you take it in. You're adding new enzymes to it in your mouth and then in your stomach and your intestines, and it all flows normally, how it should, very efficiently, and then you absorb it very well. Whereas when you juice it, you're concentrating the food. You're also getting foods that aren't the best for you if they're vegetables. You're juicing lettuce and so forth. Normally when we eat those, we can't digest them very well because they're high in cellulose. And we don't have cellulase to digest it. So when we do juice it, we're getting a concentrated juice from the cells that we've broken down in the juicing process. And so we're overloading our body often by drinking juices, especially if we drink, say, a liter of it. However, when you're in the beginning, in transitioning, your absorption is poor. And so you'll get away with that. By drinking the green juices, you're getting more concentrated nutrients into you, and that'll help put more pressure on inside you to absorb nutrients from that, and which will then satisfy your hunger. And like I said, reduce your acidity and give you lots of water, which is very necessary to hydrate your body. And yeah, you have less cravings. It's a good thing.
Okay.
Whereas as you then go on, you can reduce that amount of juices and try and eat it more in its whole form. All right.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so what are some other things that people could do if they wanted to stay satisfied but still go right into eating raw? Like what about dehydrated foods? A lot of people will make like crackers and stuff like that in dehydrators and eat that sort of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, well, a person could do that. I never did that because I didn't like spending so much time on preparing foods. That was annoying to me. And so I would just eat the food whole, at most, I'd make a nice big salad, 10 ingredients. And then a salad dressing made out of, say, oil and lemon and some honey or something like that. You can dry fruits, tomatoes, or even fruit, and eat those in between meals, or even maybe as a meal. When I did have some of those, but I'd have it more in the evening. So I wouldn't tire myself during the day. If I eat concentrated food in the morning, I'm spending all my energy on digesting that, and I don't feel as light to do the things I need to do. The those type of foods definitely afternoon and towards the evening, dinner time type. And in the morning, just keep it light because our bodies are already stored up all the food energy from the night before. And we have lots of energy available. We don't want to waste that on digesting rather than doing our activities.
Right.
So if I eat in the morning, it would just be light, right fruit, which is very easy to digest, and even at lunch. And I would keep busy with activities to get my mind off of food and off of any feelings that came up, withdrawal feelings from having simplified my diet. So, yeah. So eat the dried crackers and a lot of whatever nuts, whatever they're made out of. There's all kinds of recipes a person can get looking up raw food books. You can blend nuts, make creams with a bit of fruit in them, like acid fruits. You can have the dates with the cream cheese or dried fruit of various types that are soaked and even soaked and then blended. Little treats like that, concentrated foods as a result. And that will satisfy the body and get us out of cravings.
What about what would a slow transition look like? Like if somebody wanted to, and we already talked about this a little bit, but I thought you might want to elaborate on, what if say if somebody wanted to be 100% raw within 2 years and they wanted to, in the meantime, make sure that they're satisfied, just going into it, especially an older person that has a little more addiction under their belt, might want to do things a little bit more gradually.
So what you recommend for over a 2 year span, say,
Yeah,
improvements?
yeah.
Well, when you're jumping in it right away, you're going to be changing things dramatically right at the beginning. And if you don't, or you haven't overeaten a lot, you're not a big eater, that'll be much easier than, say, in a case like me where I was an enormous overeater. The the probably a good key to that is to keep yourself hydrated with juicy fruits and not let yourself get too thirsty. Drink some water if you need to.
And continue to eat, a cooked meal in the evening if you have to. I mean, a lot of people are coming from a
Yeah,
really bad diet.
yeah, yeah. And then we're getting to the transition. You're not going cold turkey, you're trying to force that on yourself. Yeah, even if you do go cold turkey and you have these great cravings, or you're around family or something like that and having a dinner, you can have some of that, and that'll take the pressure off you. You can look forward to it in the future, which keeps you on track when you are eating very well. So you just have a regular meal or not as much. A really good thing to do is have a salad first. Always have a salad before you have, say, starches or proteins or anything like that, to give your body a lot of nutrition, a lot of juice, and less concentrated foods. And then you can have the concentrated foods after that. And you won't want to eat as much, which is very good, of, say, a starch, potatoes, whatever it might be, pasta. or a steak or something like that, right? Don't go into the concentrated, delicious smelling foods, the appetizing foods right away. That'll overburden your body, and then you won't want to eat anything.
Wouldn't want to be hungry, in other words.
Yeah, be patient. Eat the light stuff first.
Well,
Then
I
treat
remember
it.
initially when I went raw, I would always make sure that I wasn't hungry. If I was going out to some potluck or some other event that wasn't even raw food related, where food would be served, I would eat in advance before I left so that I wouldn't be hungry when I was
Yeah,
there.
well, that's a really good idea. Yeah, you go to these raw food potlucks, and there's every food in the universe there. Very, very stimulating. You just want to eat it all. So if you eat before you've gotten your nutrition, your appetite's down, and then at the potluck you'll just eat a reasonable amount. It'll all be combined and haphazardly, but at least you won't eat a lot. Nice treat.
I remember one time I went to a raw food potluck and it was some kind of like barbecued nut burger or something. It was all raw, but it was absolutely delicious. It was so good. And I remember having a conversation with you the next day, and I said, that stuff was so good, and I wanted it again so badly the next day that if I had known how to make that stuff, I would have gone to the store and bought the ingredients. And what you said to me is, well, Nora, you just mistrained your brain. You just taught your brain that the way that you get rid of these uncomfortable symptoms that you have is you get a little bit hair of the dog. And that's where that idea, hair
Yeah.
of the dog, comes from, because that's an
Yeah.
easy way to make your bad feelings go away. Just make your body work really hard again. So that's addiction, right?
Yeah, it's pure addiction, and a great example of how it works. And that's one of the things that annoyed me, because I knew all about addiction because I was an overeater. And the next day, my stomach's grinding, and I want food because that helped me get rid of that pain.
Right.
You have these various feelings in your body of that food you ate, and then you just eat it, and it takes that away. And that's the addiction process, and you don't want to feed that. And so going to these potlucks and so forth, I didn't like going to them for that. They're very stimulating, so it's testing you, and then you do eat, and then the next day you have to endure that feeling.
Right.
That's
Right.
withdrawal feeling, and you have to go through that all again.
Right.
You just then not react to it. And it really helps that you can't just go by the ingredients and go, oh, thank goodness, it's hard to go
Right.
there.
Right.
So that helps me control myself. And so that was then the displeasure of going to the potlucks. Just do it once and here and there, and then I limit the times I have to go through those withdrawal symptoms that are the addiction process if you react to them wrongly. You got to be wise. When you eat good food, it never does that. You never get that feeling. And the next day you feel good, you feel normal, you can eat anything. But when you eat a food that isn't, like, say, concentrated nuts or that hamburger type things, you get this intense feeling the next day. You want that energy rush, or you don't want the low feeling. So you want some more of it, or it feels like you want. You just remember it, that it stimulated you a lot, and you know it's going to do it again if you have it again.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, just the cycle of addiction, because I never heard about anybody talking about addiction in terms of raw food until you started talking to me about it. And it was kind of a revelation. In fact, it was a major revelation for me to learn that you can be very much addicted to raw food. You can be addicted not to fruit because it's not really addictive, but overeating places such a burden on your body, and it expends your energy so much that the next day you feel those symptoms of withdrawal and you want to do the same thing that you did the previous day, which is overeat. So it's just that cycle. So why don't you explain that? It needs more explaining.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. When we overindulge in anything, it overburdens our body, tires it out. That process may take a while for the body to go through, such as you eating a big hamburger that is going to take all night to digest, and your body's putting a lot of into it. And in the morning, you're going to feel the effects of it. The nerve effects, they're going to be exhausted. And then you're going to feel irritated in the stomach. And a person will interpret that as a hunger feeling, say. You know, it's a bad feeling, a low feeling. Say, if I eat, then I'll feel better again. But what they're really doing, they're just re-stimulating themselves, whipping their body to create more energy, more hormones and so forth. So they feel good. And then say, hey, I feel good, therefore I was hungry. But that's not what was really going on. What they had done, they had overburdened themselves, reduced their energy, lower than normal, and they didn't like that, and so they re-stimulated themselves. They harmed it. Their body couldn't then recover properly from what they had eaten the day before. When you eat properly, just the amounts that you need, your body never gets overburdened, and so it processes it, you absorb it, you have no odd feelings, you stay without feelings. And then you know when you're truly hungry because you just know, it just happens. Just like, say, you know when to open your eyes, you want to see, or when you hear something, or when you're thirsty, you just know you want to drink, right? Yeah, so I always paid attention to that, watching, hey, am I eating this just for entertainment to get over a feeling, or is it just because I want to eat and I need to eat? And if it was any feeling or urge, strong urge that was a little odd, then I wouldn't eat. I'd delay until that feeling was away. As I improve, you always are slowly improving how you eat, less eat, simpler, eating less, eating simpler. Then you're tuning into that more, and your body's cleaning out, and eventually it becomes very easy to do with no craving feelings whatsoever. It's very freeing.
Right.
So that it's very important to pay attention to that addiction process that can easily happen when you make wrong decisions, whether it's the overeating on raw foods or cooked foods, right?
Yeah, it's definitely easy to make wrong decisions when you get those feelings and you misinterpret them, because a lot of times people will interpret their cravings as deficiency signals. My body is telling me it needs this, or, and it's just your mind's way of justifying going back to the stuff that you used to eat before.
Right. A person can feel weak and they'll say, that means I'm hungry. No, it doesn't mean that. It means you're in symptoms. If you were hungry, you'd be very, you'd feel very good, be powerful, strong.
Yeah. Hunger is not weakness. It's not felt that way.
It's not weakness, it's not a headache, it's not a pain, it's not a discomfort feeling, it's not moodiness. It's just a nice, pleasant, knowing feeling or sensation. It's like air flowing through a green forest, like that. Very pleasing, comfortable, and you don't have to react to it if you don't want to. You just, I can delay it for whatever.
Exactly. That's really important. Hunger can be delayed. True hunger, eating can be delayed if it's in response to true hunger.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I might be busy. I don't have time to eat, but I'll do it in an hour, a couple hours, whatever. Yeah.
That's
very important.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So in transitioning where you start slowly, you can do that in very many ways. But a good way is always to food combine and properly food combine and eat light in the morning, like of fruit, right? Fruit, and try to keep it simple, not too complex. And then once dinner comes or lunch comes, you can add your regular foods in there. And whenever you're eating starches, proteins, or something like that, I would recommend eating a salad, something juicy, a vegetable salad like that, or juicy, crunchy, like tomatoes and cucumbers, bell peppers, lettuce, celery, and that combination of those with whatever light, simple dressing, natural, tomatoes, lemon juice, avocado, and maybe honey or dates, something like that, just to give it a bit more flavor, increase your appetite a bit. Yeah, and then dinner time you can eat the same thing, and or a salad with it, and then your dinner, whatever it's going to be. And overall time, you're just slowly improving. Some days you can, or a couple days you can do really well, just have breakfast, fruit, lunch, fruit, and then even maybe dinner fruit or a vegetable meal and some steamed veggies, and do that for a couple days, and then you can fall back a bit, right? You're just always trying to improve a little bit. And that effort will pay off in the coming years, where then it'll become very simple And ultimately, if you're pushing all the way just to simple raw fruit, then it'll be as simple as pie. That's all you'll want.
It took a long time for me to feel satisfied eating only fruit. I mean, a really long time. And for many years, I couldn't decide what to eat. So I would choose one food and then I would think, oh, I wish I had eaten the other thing. And then I would end up eating the other thing too. And I just had that feeling for many years, like I couldn't pick one food that I wanted to eat at a time. So I would just end up eating two. But so it's a slow process. I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, which isn't surprising. So we might have to end this video here pretty soon. And we're almost
Okay.
done anyway, right? I think it's been over an hour.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we went over a lot of points. A lot more can be said, but yeah.
Okay. So we'll wrap things up there, I guess, unless you wanted, if you have anything else you want to say that we forgot, Robert.
Yeah, I forgot a lot of things, but like I'm not good at thinking them all right now.
Yeah. We'll think of them later. That's for the
Yeah.
next video.
Yeah. It's dedication, perseverance, learning. You're gonna make mistakes and it'll set you back a bit, but you just start over again and keep going. Get lots of the fruit and the juices in you, good attitude.
And don't let backsliding completely throw you off, because I mean, I used to coach a lot of people who were wanting to go raw, and they were always coming to me and saying, why can't I do this thing? Everybody else in the world that I know is doing this thing, in the raw food world anyway, that I know is doing this, but I feel so weak. But it's everybody's addicted.
It's very
right?
difficult. It's not easy.
Very difficult thing, right?
Times where you're having these symptoms come up, it's very difficult. And to get your mind thinking properly is almost impossible because your feelings are there and your old thoughts automatically come. So you can slide back, and if you do, well, you just start over again. So that's a normal thing to happen.
Yeah, so it's normal.
All right, it's normal. It's to be expected. You say, oh yeah, I did that, and you kind of laugh it off, but then you start on the new path again and just keep going. And by doing that, you'll be successful in the long run. And it might take years, but there's little things that improve here and there. You'll like one food still, even after say 4 years, and then you just keep working. All right. It's not happening overnight because it took 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, to get into the problem, and the body's going to take a long time to adjust to get out of that. Addiction is very powerful. It is. It's very powerful. I still have to be wary of that today. I know that I eat these wrong foods, it's going to come back to me very quickly, those feelings and urges. I'm wise about it. You have to look at it as an alcoholic does, or a drug addict. There's no, when you got where you want, you've got a clean diet, saying, no, I'm not going to mess with that. It's over. Right? Take it seriously. Although when you do get really healthy and your diet's improved, then you can sometimes indulge a little bit, maybe eat too much or something that you wouldn't normally, and you're prepared for that. You get over it very quickly, and as long as you don't repeat it, it's done. Right? You get over that very fast. All right. Now, I don't like doing that because you're messing with fire. And then I feel so good just eating well that I don't need to do that. That's just indulging in something, getting a thrill that I don't need. That moment is really important, that you don't make the same mistake again, because if you do, that sets up a pattern. I worked so hard to get this. I went through all of that suffering or that tension I had to do, and I don't need that anymore. I learned it. Think about your investment, what you've invested so far. I want to keep that shiny and clean and enjoy it. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. I hope this has been helpful for everybody, and hopefully we'll be doing more videos in the future, and we'll see you next time. So thanks so much, Robert. Bye everybody.